So of these recent developments, I'm hoping that you all will briefly describe one for somebody who doesn't know as much about it. And I'll start here with Wagner.
Yeah, recently we've been seeing a series of remarkable advancements in the field. Like just last week we saw the progress of the Jacobian conjecture. But I would like to rewind a bit, and for me personally, just it was a personal Kasparov moment, and go back to 2024 when in the summer of 2024 we had this silver medal standard by the AlphaProof team at the International Math Olympiad, which for me personally was really somehow a breakthrough, in the sense that historically, I mean, I've also played with Olympiad problems back in the day, being part of these mathematical circles, and I've always had this Olympiad problem solving as like one of the pinnacles of human thought and achievement in some sense. So seeing that this can be done by some sort of an AI system was really remarkable.
Connected. So there was always the question after seeing like all these successes in the IMO problems and so on, whether models could really perform not just at the level of Olympiad problems, where the branching factor is relatively small, but rather at let's say, professional research. So for me, this turning point happened a little later, around the fall of 2025, so September, October 2025, when the very first papers reporting non-trivial use of LLMs to assist mathematicians in professional research have been successful. And this is what really drew me into like head-on into this sort of new way of doing mathematics.
Jordy.
Yeah, I guess for me it's not one moment, but like I mucked around with coding agents at about this time last year, and they were just horrible. Like, it's just like, this is just a net waste of time. And I feel like there just seems to be something that happened around about December, January, in my opinion, and I think people kind of put the exact time somewhat differently, but somewhere around that time, models seem to have just gotten to the point where they're kind of good enough that they're much more reliable. And so, you know, they still make mistakes, but if you're making mistakes like 2% of the time as opposed to 30% of the time, it's just, you know, there's a world of difference there.
Yeah, it's the Erdős problems, which is a set of common core problems, mostly in number theory, probability, books by Paul Erdős, about 1,200 of them. They were pretty much all in my areas of expertise, so I was always playing it anyway. You know, I'd solved a bunch myself in the past. Thomas Bloom set up this very nice website to track them. There's a nice community of people who are sharing, you know, partial results and talking about them. And you could, and the closest thing we have to a benchmark for AI progress, that Erdős never intended it to be a benchmark, and it's definitely very imperfect in many ways, and it has kind of overinflated maybe the importance of the Erdős problems in mathematics in general, which was an unintended side effect. But we do need some way to measure what is the success rate of these problems. Now we have more proper ways to do this. First proof is a great initiative, for instance. But there was a way to track, you know, at some point AIs could solve maybe 2% of the outstanding problems by, say, just literature search. Then it went to 3 or 4% because you could connect two different ideas from different papers and do some very simple transformations. And you could just see every time there's a new model come out, there's just a little uptick in that success rate. You know? And I think now, I mean, there used to be 300 or 1,200 problems were solved, now like 500. And now there's a backlog. There's lots of proofs now on the website, which have proofs are generated, and some are even validated in lean, and they're just waiting for humans to digest them. And so that's where we're at right now. It's been a remarkable evolution on that side.
Matt.
So maybe you'll indulge me for a moment, because I'll talk a little bit about background. I apologize if you're already familiar with what lean is and what formal verification is, right? It's a way to turn logic, mathematical arguments into computer code and interact with it as you would a program. Do interesting things that you couldn't necessarily do the same way when music or literature gets digitized, new ways to collaborate, new ways to create things in forms that didn't exist before. And so within that environment, it provides a natural challenge in this way for the progress of artificial intelligence, right? How impressive how quickly can you take a result, a paper, or a book, and turn it into code. And up to certainly before November of last year, this was something that you could do, but the expectation was pretty low that something would come out, that it would actually finish. But it's exceptionally sped up, and so the silver medal alpha proof was something that really opened people's eyes in this community. But I think back to things I've seen over the past month here, where individuals just working with agents have formalized results like the Feit-Thompson odd order theorem within time frames of 8 weeks, depending on if they decided to feed in the background literature, to about 1 week if they just pointed at the existing rock formalization itself. And now I think it's important to contrast this with the previous effort by Georges Gantier for Feit-Thompson that took 6 years, 15 people, hundreds of thousands of lines of code to build up to a result that was the complete formalization of this.